Paramount Pictures is currently filming a major motion picture in North Georgia called
Very interesting things, which you'll see once you check out that movie.
We generally work on a few different types of projects. Obviously, we do a lot of short films.
Michael, how did you get started in filmmaking?
A very large part of the success of any project.
I started my filmmaking career actually on a cruise ship, making short films.
Wow. I'm the executive producer to our new feature film, The Common Denominator.
Tell us a little bit about your character in the film.
She's really upset from the beginning, from the get-go.
Tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Well, basically, I somehow started acting in 1990.
Hello, I'm Lavette Clifton, and I'd like to welcome you to the 10th episode of Ruel Hollywood, a show that takes an in-depth look at the movie industry in the Southeast and beyond. On today's episode, Jessica Page will be speaking with Ralph Wilcox, who's the director of the Southwest Georgia Film Commission, about the movie industry in Southwest Georgia. But first, Jessica will sit down with filmmaker and actor Kely McClung to discuss his upcoming action movie, Blood Ties.
Hi, welcome. We're here with Kely McClung, who is the writer, director, producer, stunt coordinator, and lead actor in the feature film called Blood Ties. Welcome, Kely.
Thank you. Thanks.
We're glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Okay, share with our audience your background first in martial arts.
I've been doing it all my life. I have black belts in half dozen things, a lot of training in things that don't have black belts. Mm-hmm. And I was a international or a world champion in full contact Kali, competing with full contact stick fighting. Mm-hmm. And that brought me into the martial art world, or into the movie world. Mm-hmm. And so I've been doing it all my life.
So you said that martial arts led you into filmmaking?
Well, originally I was brought to LA to replace Van Damme. And they were able to renegotiate all of his contracts, and so I got thrown to the wayside. So I was in Africa for about a year doing a couple films there. Mm-hmm. And learned a lot. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it introduced me to all the people who were like, hey, you're cool, do martial art movies.
All right, well, tell us about your movie, Blood Ties.
It's probably the most ambitious, no-budget movie that myself or any of my friends have ever heard about. Mm-hmm. And so when we started to try to make a movie, there are people who are very, very clever, Blair Witch as an example, or Diner, or, landmark films. Mm-hmm. But I went into this saying, well, I'm not that smart, but I know how to make a Hollywood movie. Mm-hmm. I just don't have Hollywood money. So I was like, if I can be smarter or more clever, maybe I can pull off something significant. And we went to film something small, and very quickly I was like, I can actually make a big movie here. And everybody's like, you're insane, you're crazy. And I'm like, no, it can be better, it can be bigger. And so it's just grown and grown. And we've made, for this budget, something very rare, which is a movie that actually takes itself serious. And I hope, like you said, I did this, and this, and I hope I'm not the only person that shows up to watch it, printing the tickets and popping the popcorn, and hopefully somebody else comes and goes, hey, that's pretty fun too,
Mm-hmm. What's the story? What's the story about?
Well, our concept was really easy. It was really simple. And my brother would get kidnapped, and basically everywhere he would go, he'd get his butt kicked. And I would be right behind him, and everywhere I'd go, I'd kick everybody's butt, And from that, it grew and grew, and it's actually a pretty complex government conspiracy type story. So a little bit born identity, born supremacy type thing, a little Man on Fire type style, Tony Scott. But it's actually a very complex story, which the movie is done in hyperdrive. There's over 4,000 edits in the movie, so it really flies. But it's very emotional. It's a very, which is what I'm really proud of. It has a lot of strong emotional content to almost every scene. Different.
Okay. So there are a lot of people who made this film possible. Can you tell us more about those people? And you mentioned there are a lot of Atlanta actors in this film. Could you tell us more about the people in the film?
Well, the primary one is my brother, who's my partner on the film, and Robert Pralgo. And Rob is probably, for good reason, one of the most working actors in this part of the country. So because of Rob, he knows everybody, and nobody really knew me. I was in LA and I ran a production company in Florida, and so I was kind of like this myth. So no, I know, you know, I have no friends. I only have Rob's friends, and we joke about it. And I'm in my dungeon creating, you know. But because of Rob, I was introduced to lots of really good people. Now, as far as our crew was entirely, almost one person only. Well, I mean, Rob filmed, I filmed, and we took one person to Thailand. And then in the States, we had another guy named Dan Slimmons, who is a jack of all trades and works on every project in Atlanta, no matter how big or small. And he became our entire American crew, which is pretty amazing.
So your brother Rob is actually your brother?
No.
Is he the one that plays your brother in the film, or is it a different person?
Well, Rob Pralgo, and so he's not related. But when we were in LA, like he lived in New York when I lived in LA, and you know, we've known each other 15 years and talked about doing projects. And everybody's like, you guys look like brothers. And of course now I'm twice as big and he's shrinking out, and so now we don't look anything alike. But it was enough that we said, hey, let's make a movie based around that concept. And he can get beat up really well. He's really good at it, and I'm really good at beating everybody up, so it worked.
So it works out. It's a good partnership.
It was.
Okay, well, good. Well, tell us a little bit about the scene we're going to see.
This is an action scene that is a transition from a lot of action that's going to lead right into a lot more action. So the interesting part about this is we hired 26 guys. I found this amazing location. We paid everybody under the table to sneak into this location, which is two 40-story buildings on the river in the heart of Bangkok. And I hired 24 professional stunt guys. We had 4 plastic guns, and that was it. And with that, we did this much action in a single day.
Wow.
Which is really unheard of, and especially the days are short. So this is a huge action scene, but there's about 15 minutes of action right before it, and this leads into about 10 more minutes action after it. So this is a little transition action scene.
Okay, well, let's take a look.
Okay.
What you waiting for?
Okay, so how did you think that you could fly across the world and put together this low-budget film in 2 different continents, on 2 different continents?
I had taught in Thailand years and years ago, so when we said, let's make a movie, Rob was like, okay, I'll kick in money, but it has to be action or horror. And I've done about 24 films with action, and starred in a couple small ones and written a bunch. And so I was like, well, you know, it's got to be action. And I'm not going to make a martial art movie in Atlanta. We have no guns, nobody can break anything. I'm going to feel like an idiot. Here, everybody would pull out guns and shoot you. And you know, like even a set like this, couldn't knock this over because we couldn't break it. So it's like, you know, what can we do? And I'd been to Thailand, and Thailand's like Disney World, where everywhere you turn on the camera and you take a snapshot, you go, wow, I'm a great photographer. And Thailand's kind of like that. It's so exotic and different for us. And what's interesting is about 30 or 40% of the movie is in America. And we actually filmed in DC, Miami, the mountains of Virginia, Atlanta, and all the Thai people I've shown are just fascinated. We did it during the fall when the leaves change in the mountains and stuff, and so they just love to see the American scenes. And so that was the idea, how can we fake a big movie? And really, we went, we knew nothing. I went 5 days before Rob to prep everything, took a cameraman I'd never met before, met him in Korea. We landed and started filming literally 6 hours after we landed. And I've had to make 4 trips to keep getting footage. So more ambitious than I thought, but it's a lot bigger movie than we ever dreamed.
So when we were talking in the green room, you called it guerrilla filming. Tell our audience, that was interesting to me, so tell our audience what is
well, lots of people know what guerrilla filmmaking means, but guerrilla filmmaking means, as an example, we filmed in Washington, D.C., and we have friends who film for the government. They film actually for the Postal Service, which is part of the government, really. And they were like, we can't get permits. You cannot film in Washington, D.C. It's not going to happen post 9/11. And I was like, you know, I think we can sneak away with it and get around. So we were actually approached by Secret Service a couple times to say, you know, what are you guys doing? And it looks like we control the entire mall. I had 5 people, and it literally looks like we control everything. But, so guerrilla filmmaking means, you know, you're kind of on the sly. We use a camera that we look like tourists. And so they basically were like, you know, what are you doing? And I'm just making a movie for my mom. And they were like, you know, I used the same one in Cambodia. I did the same excuse. It became useful. And so I was like, they're like, you know, well, why are you doing it over and over? And I'm like, well, you know, she's really picky, and I want it to be really good. And so, you know, my friend Rob filmed it. I made my brother drive. He lives in Richmond. I said, here, have a part, you can drive. And by the way, do you want to buy us dinner? And we're staying at your place tonight. And that's guerrilla filmmaking, where it's out of your pocket and you're trying to be clever and you're counting on resources. And if it rains, we'll use rain. And if it's sunny outside, we'll use the sun. And it's really taking advantage of what you can find.
Okay. So how much time did you actually take to prepare for this film?
You know, you can look at it as either like 30 years or you can say just a month or 2. But literally, I wrote a 33-page script, which it should have been about 110 pages, you know, page a minute more or less. And it came out as a 105-minute movie, which my friends were like, you're insane. But, you know, I didn't know, would I have a pretty girl that would work for us in Thailand, or would I have an ugly girl? Would I have 10 people or 100 or only 1 or nobody? And we ended up with everything. I ended up with an amazing actor, Eric Marcus Schutz, did a great job. He's a German who lives in Thailand, speaks German, English, Thai, did a great job. He introduced me to professional stunt guys. They've done every Jackie Chan, Jet Li. And their first day, they were like, you know, who are you with this little camera? You know, I mean, like, one person, this is not a movie. And within a day, it literally became embarrassing. It was, Master, what do we do? Tell us, Master. You know? I'm like, shut up, you know. And even now, so it's kind of that way, you know. And it was great.
What was it that they were impressed with after just the first day?
I honestly think it was the commitment, how hard we were working. You know, martial art wise, I'm asking them to get beat up and take falls, and I'm the American guy, let me win, and they're like, you know. But by the first day, I'd staged all the action with everybody else. And you have to understand, we literally, I mean, as an example, we jumped in a truck. I asked where the jungle was, and they said, you know, you can go 3 hours south or 3 miles north. And south, you're going to find ocean and jungle. North, you're going to find mountains. I go, well, we got to have jungle. Just drive north. And my friend Rob is just furious, you know, because we have no real plan. And I'm like, we'll drive. And literally 3 hours later, I was like, this is amazing. Pull over. And that's pretty much what we did. And we just started filming. And by the end of the first day, I had my big fight with one of 2 big fights with the German guy, who is a world champion, and he's shredded, and he's, you know, he's ready to kick my butt, you know. And he did. And but when they saw how I knew what I was doing. They saw martial art wise, if I asked them to fall, I would take 10. And by the time that was over, they just really respected it. And, you know, I just think that was a respect thing.
Right.
And then after that, they were like, anything you want. I've made 4 more trips to Thailand. They're like, anything you want. They pick me up at the airport. They bring me more stunt guys. They, you know, hey, we can do more, which is great.
Well, thank you, Kely, so much for coming out, and I had a great time. I learned so much about martial arts, and I'm glad that you came. It was nice meeting you.
It's nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Should be fun.
Thanks. Hi, we're here with Ruel Wilcox. Welcome.
I'm humbled to be on your show.
Thank you for coming. Ralph is an actor who's been on many classic television shows such as Happy Days, Good Times, What's Happening, Madlock, along with many other shows and movies. He is now the director of the Southwest Georgia Film Commissioner's Office. All right, share your background as an actor with our audience.
Well, I guess we all have a story in terms of how we got started. I got started in church because I had that desire, and of course no one really understood that, so my mom would put me in church productions and all and never give me the lead role, but I always managed to find a way to steal it anyway. I never will forget one show I was doing. I was not even a shepherd, I was a sheep, and there was a sheet over me, and so no one could see me, and I remember the line very vividly from the shepherd saying, "What is that bright star?" And I stood up and said, "Bah, where? And from there on in, you know, with that response from the audience, I said, I like this, and certainly grew up pursuing that very vigorously. No one in the family, of course, you know, had been in show business, and I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, so I mean, there was no real industry as we understand the industry from the professional arenas and all. But ultimately, after leaving the University of Wisconsin, I went on to New York and did very well, you know, a lot of TV commercials, feature films and all, and a lot of Broadway and off-Broadway, a song and dance man and all, and ultimately decided that I wanted to go to Hollywood, and went to Hollywood and was very fortunate, wound up with a TV series probably, I guess, the first month that I got there, and by the grace of God, I have been making a living in the industry for over 30 years. And ultimately, I kind of took a leave from the industry, and I went to Africa 6.5 years producing documentaries on the work of missionaries. And it was there at that time that I really had a conversion, an epiphany, if you will, and was married at the time when I came back in the country and wanted to stay close to my boys. And we were in actually Florida, and I had discovered when I came back in the country that the film and television industry had become so decentralized until things were no longer shooting just in Hollywood, New York, or Chicago, or Atlanta, but they were shooting all over the country. And Florida, Georgia, and North Carolina, being right-to-work states, had an awful lot of activities, so I got real busy. And of course, as the pendulum tends to swing, you know, when you're hot, you're hot, when you're not, you're not. And as things slowed down a bit, I discovered Southwest Georgia. Didn't even know anything about Southwest Georgia. And what I saw down there was, by and large, cotton and peanuts. And I wasn't about to whistle Dixie, so I wasn't interested too much in that. But I did discover that Southwest Georgia, which is Colquitt, Albany, Bainbridge, Cairo, really has, it's the 9th poorest congressional district, you know, in the country. And I knew how lucrative the film and television industry could be, you know, in small communities and all. And I'm also very much aware that there's talent everywhere. I'm also equally aware that in our industry, whether you're working in front of the camera, which most people basically, that's the extent of their knowledge of this industry, they don't realize that there are a plethora of jobs behind the camera. Carpentry, electricians, transportation, food services, hotels and all. And so I started a training program, basically training disenfranchised and marginalized young people in the movie industry and all. And the program has been running now about 3 years. It is now a certificate program at one of the colleges, and several of the other area colleges about to pick up the program. So students who look like they may be ready to drop out of school, you know, have really gotten very excited about this new idea of staying in school. Hey, you know, maybe I could work in the industry in some capacity. So that's what's been happening. Yeah, so it's been good, and it's been very empowering, which of course is very important to me in terms of my relationships with people who feel so disenfranchised, finding a way to empower them.
Well, in addition to the certificate program, what are your other responsibilities as the director of the
Film Commission
Southwest
office.
Georgia
Yeah, I was
office?
appointed. You know, I came down south and I had this great vision about the movie industry being in the South. And of course, you know, no matter who I spoke to, eyes started glazing over, or they started whispering to themselves, who is he running from? You know, I mean, this is Southwest Georgia. We do peanuts and cotton down here, son. You know, but I could see very clearly how this could be, you know, a real asset to the community. And then, of course, with the aggressive tax incentive credits that have been recently passed by this state, not to mention some of the aggressive tax write-off incentives by the federal government, I kept talking and kept really promoting this vision. I was eventually appointed the film commissioner for Southwest Georgia, so I represent 14 counties, and primarily my job really is marketing all of the great location sites that exist in that region, and the fact that, with all due respects to Atlanta, the fact of the matter is that you can actually shoot down there a lot cheaper than you can shoot up here, and of course with any filmmaker that is the bottom line, you know, can I get my story told, you know, a lot cheaper. So I was appointed the commissioner, and then of course I went a step further and I convinced the federal and state government, and I will not say that it was me, I am humble before the grace of God, but he gave me some listening ears with my congressman and certainly with the governor, and I raised about $1 million and will complete construction on a 22,000 square foot movie soundstage, you know, with a 20-foot green screen with a state-of-the-art HD editing suite. We are looking at also building a backlot, you know, an old, you know, traditional studio backlot. So there's a multitude of things getting ready to happen there. And then I've got about 12 feature film projects in various stages of production, 2 in particular that will go into pre-production, because once again, by the grace of God, I've been able to raise the money to put these projects into production. And it didn't happen until, of course, the sound stage was standing. Because you know how people are. You know, they say they have a lot of faith, but most people only believe what they see. You know, but when they started to see that sound stage go up and they started coming inside and saying, my goodness gracious, this man has built a movie sound stage in the middle of the cotton fields. And I said, and you haven't seen anything yet. So with those 2 film projects scheduled to go into production, I am really getting ready to market the region by staging the first annual Faith-Based Family Film Festival.
And that's coming up, right?
Yeah,
Pretty soon.
That's coming up Labor Day weekend.
And what's the name of the film festival?
It is the Family Video Film Festival. The name of the studio is Jakara Masho. It's actually the initials of 2 people, 2 ladies down there who really, really saw my vision. Most people might be familiar with Colquitt, Georgia, because there was a play that was started by a visionary down there about 14 years ago, and nobody ever believed that she could use that play as a revenue stream for that community. It's been running 14 years. You know, they change things continuously and all, but it's been running about 14 years. So when I came along, they could see the vision. So here I am now, having traveled the world, having lived everywhere, living in a little town that's got 1 stoplight and 10 stop signs, and I'm getting more done in that little bitty town than you could ever possibly imagine. But then I go back to scripture. What good can come out of Nazareth, you know? What good can come out of Colquitt? They have no idea.
So are you looking forward to, are you really excited about the film festival?
Very, very excited. I've got a lot of my celebrity friends who's coming down to Colquitt. In fact, many of them used to ask me, Ralph, where are you now? Because they know I travel extensively. And I said, I'm in Colquitt. And they said, like, what country is that? And I said, I'm in Georgia. You're in the Soviet Union?
Southeast Asia?
I said, no.
Colquitt?
Colquitt. I said, no, I'm 3 hours from Atlanta, Georgia.
Wow.
But a host of them are coming down to participate in the festival. We have symposiums that will cover everything from the subject of, is there a market for faith-based family films? People who are interested in really learning the industry. We have those symposiums. And I happen to be in a wonderful place because, you know, in that area, as I continuously say to folks, agriculture is struggling as a result of NAFTA free trade. Manufacturing is gone. And high tech is not coming because there's not a workforce over there. I said, and so what has happened is that there is a lot of old money in that area. And now many of the people who once were farmers and involved primarily in agriculture are actually looking at investing money in films.
That's very interesting. I never would have thought.
Oh, well, see, with that, but the thing about it is that you've got to have the vision.
Exactly.
You've got to, in essence, create the tools necessary, you know, and the pillars necessary to hold it up. And then all of a sudden, you'll be surprised who will be coming on board. I mean, it is so exciting. I mean, that's how I've been able to raise money for some of these films. And like I said, in fact, one of the things that I am really promoting to filmmakers and industry professionals, and I dare say novices, and all, is that, look, you don't always have to be in Hollywood, New York, Chicago to make things happen, because it doesn't happen first where you are, it happens first who you are. And so I have
That's very inspiring.
Yeah, you know, so I've been down there working very, very hard. I mean, and it's been such a learning experience because, you know, I get down in the jeans like everyone else, but more often than not, you know, I'm in a suit. And of course, for a long time, they just refused to believe, you know, that an African American in a suit, you know, was a reality. So I was always a preacher or a funeral home director. And I used to say, well, yes, I am a preacher, and in terms of funerals, I'm killing doubt, you know, so yes, and trying to bury it quickly. Because that's what is necessary. You know, when we look at what happened with Katrina, the thing that upsets me more than anything, besides the fact that it was a natural disaster is that, you know, we look at these areas and we fail to realize that everybody has these knee-jerk reactions after the fact. You know, many times you can go in areas where there is a need for inspiration, you know, for empowerment, and we can make a difference before the tragedies and all. And so often we always want to wait for the tragedies, and then we want to throw money at the situation and think that is going to somehow liberate, you know, the people in the region and all. But one of the things about my festival also is that I'm really inspiring churches and people who really have a passion for faith, because when you look at, I've got a church down there in Southwest Georgia called Sherwood Baptist. They did a film about 2 years ago for $25,000, and that film made them about $300,000. Well, they've turned around and they've taken that money and they've done a new film called Facing the Giants, which Sony Pictures is going to release in late September in 400 theaters. And I keep saying, you know, typically in so many churches, typically what we're looking for is or what we're used to seeing are these television evangelist ministries. But you know, there are stories. There are wonderful stories, you know, and generally in the South, when we think about stories, we always think about, and I don't want to be a slave no more. And I said, you know what, there is many more stories to be told. And some of the films that I'm getting ready to produce are coming out of those regions and those areas. They're fresh, they're different, they're unique, they're inspiring, and they're empowering. And I'm looking literally for all of Georgia, you know, wherever, Alabama, Mississippi. I mean, I've got people coming from everywhere, and I've got an excellent collaborative relationship with Florida State University Film School. And they're just an hour, you know, from where I am. So everybody now is starting to come down south and starting to realize, wait a minute, it's all about producing great stories. And you can do that anywhere if you have the vision and the wherewithal to pull it off.
All right now. Okay. Thank you for coming, Ralph.
Thank you so much. And if I talked too long and didn't give you a chance to answer any questions, it's because it's so passionately inside of me until.
Right. I understand.
We'd like to thank our guests, Kely McClung and Ralph Wilcox, for appearing on our show. And we'd also like to thank you, the viewers, for joining us. So be sure to tune in next time for another episode of Ruel Hollywood.